All right, let's get to the real world news. Iran downplays Israel's retaliatory attack on an airbase.
After 5 days considering its next move, Israel launched an attack on Iran in the early hours of Friday morning. The target was an airbase near the central city of Isfahan. A few hundred miles north in the capital Tehran, passengers were ordered to evacuate the international airport for fear of an attack there. By first light, the skies were calm.
I like mainstream media being like, well, this was a retaliatory attack. Why did Iran's attack never get considered as a retaliatory attack? There's an unprecedented attack. An unprecedented attack by Iran. Like, yeah, sure, it was unprecedented. So what's up? How come it's retaliatory when Israel does it, but not retaliatory when Iran does it?
Again, this was filmed at the nearby Isfahan nuclear facility. Not itself a target, but by hitting close by, Israel had made a point. By breakfast time, Iranian state media was reporting that a few small drones had been shot down. It was the start of a building narrative.
Everything is back to normal.
The
sound heard early in the morning today in Esfahan was not an explosion. It was our powerful air defense firing at a suspicious object. It caused no damage or incident at all.
Iran's attack had like 300 missiles and drones, little bro. Not saying it wasn't retaliation. I'm saying it was definitely different than this feather of an attack. I agree. We are in agreement that this is a feather of an attack. I still think it is unacceptable and unimaginable that Israel chose to do this, because it's not like there was no guarantee that Iran would not retaliate. That's number one. Number two, America told them not to. So the fact that they still did it wasn't even a fuck you to Iran as much as it was a you to Joe Biden. That's what I said last night, and I will reiterate that position. Israel, by doing this, especially when there was no guarantee that Iran would not retaliate at all, basically just, instead of violating Iranian sovereignty, especially considering how minimal and how anemic this attack was, they basically only violated American sovereignty, or rather America's control over the region. They literally were just like, someone in the chat yesterday likened this to, you know, when you tell a child not to kick the chair, and then they just do like one last kick after you say, don't kick the chair. That's what they did. They were like, nope. And then they stop. And then the child stops, but it's still like, nope, I'm going to do one last one. I have the last word. I told you so. And it's so crazy, bro. And you know America isn't going to do shit about Israel going against their word. Yeah, it just doesn't make any sense. Don't you think there's more to it that Biden officially says don't attack and privately Israel says do whatever it takes? No, I think Biden genuinely did not want Israel to attack. I do believe that. You want to know why I believe that? Because obviously if Israel does attack Iran and then Iran retaliates, it's bedlam. It's World War III. America inevitably gets drawn into the conflict because they have an unconditional commitment to defending Israel, right? This is such a funny take. Oh my God. I wish I had that same opinion. I wish I came up with it myself. Sean says, remember when Joe Biden's dog kept biting everyone a lot? Like it was in the news constantly attacking people dozens of times. It happened. And it was confusing to me because why would they let that go on for so long? It's the White House. They can't stop a dog attacking people. If any movies are made out about the Biden presidency in the future, they're gonna have a really handy metaphor for the whole administration right there. Metaphor aside, and speaking just about the dog situation, it really is weird by itself that the dog hospitalized multiple people and they still kept letting it near people without a muzzle. Like, what are you doing? Oh, for those of you who are asking the obvious question, which is really there's a really funny answer for it. What was Israel's excuse to attack Iran the first time? Well, the excuse was these guys are Hamas, which they're not, but they were saying that, well, maybe they planned the attack, but they didn't really, and also they didn't even say that really. Some other outlets did report on it, so, even though it was false. They don't really need to give a fucking reason for why they attacked the Iranian embassy. Let's be for fucking real. However, a very funny piece of information came out yesterday. An article in the New York Times titled, we didn't think, well, not titled that, but I'm paraphrasing here. We didn't think Iran would be that mad if we violated their sovereignty by attacking the Damascus consulate compound. So now, even if they obviously thought Iran would retaliate or not, they want to communicate to the Western media, at least, that, yeah, no, they are that stupid. Awesome. What are we doing here? When I was a little kid, my older brother used to hit me all the time. I was a stubborn kid, so I always hit him back, but he was so much bigger than me, so in return, I got beat up even worse. Still, I always felt like I had to give the last blow, so at a certain point, I would retaliate with just a light tap, one that he wouldn't even notice. That was my way to feel like I won. This is what Israel's response response in Iran was like. For once, it could not act like the neighborhood bully as it usually does, but had to resort to the methods of a 6-year-old. I can understand why it drives some Israelis crazy. They're used to Israel being able to terrorize the region without suffering any real consequences. Reality has changed, it seems. Yeah, internally, I think this, like, again, anemic response that was a light tap that I think wanted to show Iran that they have the targeting capabilities to avoid their anti-air defenses to a certain degree and can, like, operate drones either within the Iranian borders or very close to the Iranian borders through other regional actors that doesn't have to directly be an Israeli national sitting on top of a mountain, is probably like the message that they were trying to convey. But ultimately what ended up happening is that it was so like minuscule that Iran did not turn around and make a bigger deal out of it whatsoever. I hope they don't respond to this, by the way. I think that that would be the reasonable thing to do. And of course, Ben Gvir and those in Israel, as BM correctly is pointing out here, are very upset because they think it was, you know, lame as hell. It was tiny. Yeah, this was the New York Times article. I fucking love these pieces, bro. Miscalculation led to escalation and clash between Israel and Iran. Israeli officials say they didn't see a strike on a high-level Iranian target in Syria as a provocation and did not give Washington a heads up about it until right before it happened. Okay, then. Are you 5 years old? What happened? Rank inflation is so hard in the Israeli military that, like, we got literal 6-year-olds that are making these decisions? The do you mean? Oopsie. They made everybody into a general. There's babies with binkies and shit going, that's right, terror babies. I am here to kill the terror babies in Iran. What is happening here? Actually, yes, bomb the consulate. It will be fine. Yeah, I mean, here, this is exactly. Look, Iran says it will respond at maximum level if Israel acts against its interests. This is from today. After the strike, Iranian Foreign Minister Hossein Amr-Abdollahian speaks next to his Sri Lankan counterpart Ali Sabri following a bilateral meeting during his visit in Colombo, Sri Lanka, where he says Iran will respond at an immediate and maximum level if Israel acts against its interests. If Israel wants to do another adventurism and act against its interests on Iran, our next response will be immediate and will be at a maximum level. No, this isn't before today. This is after yesterday's slap. No, it's not before. No, this is after. Bro, his comments follow reports of an Israeli strike on Iran early Friday. Hello, it's right here. Hello, guys. Read in the name of Allah. Read, okay? It's literally the first surah of Quran. Read, he said to Muhammad the prophet, peace be upon his name. And to those of you who are confused, and you might be saying, well, didn't they say this before the attack? Yes, they did. So why are they saying it after the attack? Because they're basically saying the attack is negligible and so marginal that it basically did not happen. If only Israel would have operated in a similar fashion after the Iranian retaliation. But they didn't. You want to know why? Because they're fucking childlike. Because this is almost identical to the same assessment capabilities that Israel has. This is why I am saying that this was a bigger fuck you to America than Iran. Like, it's ridiculous. It's just objectively a bigger fuck you to America, especially after the United States of America literally was like, you can invade Rafah as a treat. Please, we'll do anything. We won't serve you at the top of the hour ad breaks at the top of the hour. Just kidding. We will do that. I love when you speak praise of Allah. I know you're atheist, but may Allah guide you without you knowing. Keep doing the work of good, brother. Okay. Hey, Hasan, this is unrelated to the topic, but I just want to thank you for the Walking Dead content you've been doing lately. I'm going through a really shitty phase of my life. Seeing you play that game has been such a good distraction and a way to forget about my problems for a bit. Sorry for interrupting news coverage. No problem. Hope things get better for you, brother. The reason why Iran is reiterating their position is because they're saying like this wasn't real, but if you do actually make this real, it will be bad for you. So Itamar Ben-Gvir is very mad. Apparently, this statement, he's very mad about how tiny the attack was, and because he's so mad about it that someone told me this morning that within center-right circles in Israel, my impression is that this was received as targeted, intelligent, threatening response to them who's boss, like, oh, it was right near the nuclear facility, so they're secretly shitting themselves now. Likudniks like Ayelet Shaked praised it, while Ben-Gvir, of course, laughed at it, as you saw. And I think the Iranian newspapers actually put this in the cover. Someone was saying that, I think was it Tasnim or whatever, the Iranian newspaper made this their cover, like Itamar Ben-Gvir's statement. Dude, I love guys like this. Look at this. In my opinion, Islam is demonic. Like, bro, what are you saying right now? I love the first take, like the first opinion that this guy is putting in the chat is literally, in my opinion, Islam is demonic. Surely you will agree. The Bible says that if an angel tells you things that aren't of the word of God, or they don't acknowledge God as God, they are not good angel and should be considered demonic. Except Islam does acknowledge Christianity and also believes that Jesus Christ is a prophet. They say his name is Isa. We say Isa. I do love that this guy, that was the mainstream view in medieval Europe, actually. I love having a chatter who is representing the mainstream view in medieval Europe. Like, this dude has the attitude of a peasant from a time when, you know, they thought, some people at least, thought that the shining bulb in the sky was God. Showcase number 648, the most ridiculous alleged attack by the Zionists in one word. While there are various speculations about the events, yeah, oh my God, they're flexing on him. I mean, dude, one can make the argument that like both sides did the same thing, but one side deployed a shit ton more resources in defense of it in comparison to the other side. You know what I mean? While there are various speculations about the events of this morning in Isfahan, the meaningful one-word tweet of Ben Gvir, I'm sure that's a mistranslation, but very funny regardless. Ben Gvir, who wrote, "Weak," has confused the entire Israeli cabinet and mercenary figures of this regime. Oh, Jesus. Okay, that's great. You know, let's keep it to the memes and let's not fucking escalate.
First, the G7 condemned the unprecedented Iranian attack on Israel. Unprecedented in scope and scale. Scope because it was a direct attack on Israel from Iran. Scale because it involved more than 300 munitions, including ballistic missiles. We're committed to Israel's security. We're also committed to de-escalating, to trying to bring this tension to a close. You saw as well, or you'll see soon in the G7 statement, a commitment to hold Iran to account for its destabilizing activities.
It's cool, man. What does he have to say? Wait, he's not talking about Israel's retaliation. He's talking about Iran's retaliation to Israel. Hello? Wait, did I misunderstand what he said? He hasn't even fucking brought up. Wait, what? He's like, yeah, we're sanctioning Iran. We're sanctioning Iran again, actually, because Israel hit it. Just kidding. I know he's like talking about the Iranian attack first and foremost, but it is pretty funny that the title is like the opposite. Iran should not have utilized anti-aircraft weaponry against the Israeli drones. This was an unprecedented act of retaliation, an act of violence against Israeli drones that were simply minding their own business on a mission. This attack to the infrastructure of Israel and its drones is unimaginable and unacceptable. We have to put an end to the Iranian retaliations against Israeli drones as well.
Holding it to account by degrading its missile and drone capabilities. And yesterday, the United States announced additional sanctions on Iran, targeting UAV programs, the steel industry, companies that are associated with the IRGC, the Ministry of Defense, and its armed forces logistics. The G7 statement makes clear that G7 countries will adopt additional sanctions or other measures in the days ahead, even as we've been dealing with the conflict in the Middle East. And, again,
are you going to talk about Israel at all? Why is the media saying that he actually is giving remarks on Israel's retaliation against Iran? This is a 2-minute clip.
The unprecedented attack by Iran on Israel, we've remained intensely focused on Gaza. We urge the rapid implementation of Israel's humanitarian assistance commitments. More aid, more crossings, better deconfliction, better distribution of the assistance to all who need it. We have seen important steps over the last couple of weeks with more crossings opening, more aid getting in, more aid getting around. But we need to see sustained results. And we need, in particular, to make sure that there is distribution throughout Gaza. We also focused on the imperative of getting to a ceasefire with the release of hostages. Such a ceasefire would facilitate the dramatic expansion of humanitarian assistance. It would also let Gazans return to the north, those who've been displaced from the north. The only thing standing between the Gazan people and a ceasefire is Hamas.
No.
It's rejected generous proposals from Israel.
I want to mention something here that's really important for those of you who have only started learning more and more about the ways in which the United States collaborates with the Israeli government and how we tell the story of the peace process. process. Now, many of you have been paying close attention to the steps that have been taken in the ceasefire negotiations. How could you, if you have more than 2 fucking brain cells, ever look at this situation and how America represents the situation versus what the situation actually is and think, oh yeah, the peace process up until this moment, up until October 7, was totally valid and definitely fucked over by the Palestinian side. Just something to reconsider about those who still think that like the age-old adage at this point that like Palestinians were offered real considerations always, and then they were the ones who cast it aside. Here it is. The American administration once again reiterating that it's the Palestinians that are fucking up the ceasefire process. It is actually Hamas that is fucking up the ceasefire process and not Israel. Please don't say it's Israel. I hope this calls into question what you have previously heard about the so-called peace process that everybody loves to use as a talking point when trying to defend Israel, saying that it was actually the Palestinians, the Palestinian side that ruined those negotiations. After all, that's what American envoys said too. It's always the Palestinians that are fucking up everything, huh?
It seems more interested in a regional conflict than it is in a ceasefire that would immediately improve the lives of the Palestinian people. It continues to move the goalposts, and the world needs to know and needs to understand, again, that the only thing standing between a ceasefire and the Gazan people is Hamas.
Fox News alert, a U.S. official confirms Israel has launched a strike against Iran. It happened overnight. So far, no comment from Tel Aviv.
The strike was inside of a major Iranian military airbase that contains facilities associated with the country's nuclear program. But we know Iran's nuclear facilities are secure.
So we have not received any official statement from the Biden administration, but a source says the U.S. was notified before the strike and was not involved with it.
All right, retired General Jack Key.
This is one of those moments where Fox News will unironically be anti-America in an effort to be as far right as possible, which means you have to be pro-Israel. Any other circumstance, they would be literally critical. If this was happening under Trump's watch, they would literally have to be like, what the fuck is Israel doing? Like, they're embarrassing us. But now, because it's Biden, they're like, yeah, Israel's doing the right thing despite Biden's like shortcomings, trying to restrain them.
Keane joins us right now live from Washington with expert analysis. He's in a moment, but first we go to Jeff Paul, who is live on the ground in Tel Aviv, where, you know, Jeff, we can see the city in the background. Is it business as usual, or are the people acting shocked that they actually struck?
It definitely feels like a normal Friday here in Tel Aviv. You see a lot of people out and about running their last-minute errands ahead of Shabbat. You've got Passover starting on Monday, so it is quite busy. The beach is packed right now. But in another sense, we are also waiting for the Israeli War Cabinet to meet at some point today. Obviously, this Iranian strike will be a topic of discussion. But one thing we probably won't hear from is an Israeli government official today, and that really goes in line with the military strategy from Israel to not comment on these targeted strikes. But regardless of if anything is said by Israel today, the strike itself really does send a loud and clear message specifically to Iran that they can hit within the borders of Iran where they want.
This is such a funny take, bro. Iran knows this already. Like, everyone knows that. They have openly murdered like 50 fucking scientists since 2010. What are we talking about? Yeah, dude, they really showed Iran that they can strike Iran. It's like Iran had no idea that Israel could strike Iran inside of Iranian borders. No, I think this was more of a message to America.
And when they want to. Now, this was considered a very specific and targeted strike. It was focused on the central region of Isfahan. It's roughly 200 miles away from the capital city of Tehran and also near the Natanz nuclear facility. Now, we should point out the site was not hit in the strike, and it appeared that a nearby airbase was the target. Iranian state media so far really downplaying this strike. They've reported the explosions that were heard in the region were from the Iranian air defense system responding to 3 drones, but have not mentioned the source of the attack. An Iranian official has also reportedly told Reuters it has no plans to strike back immediately. But curiously enough, a few hours before this strike in Iran, Iran's foreign minister was in the United States.
Wait,
and
what?
spoke
Dude, okay, thank you. Thank you for giving me the best take I've heard on this so far. This was Israel giving in to U.S. pressure. They could have loaded those missiles with large warheads, and Israel didn't. First of all, as far as I understand, it was not a missile strike. It was a drone strike. So I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. And secondly, if they were giving into U.S. pressure, they would not have even hit Iran at all. Here's what they would have done if they gave into U.S. pressure and actually followed the reasonable foreign policy. If they listened to American calls for restraint, they would have kept their attacks to Iranian proxies in Iraq and in Syria. That's what they would have done, which, they could be like, oh, look at us. We're doing a show of force. We're doing a great show of force by killing, some IRGC general or some shit like that. But they didn't do that. They hit Iran as well, which was 100% against what America had told them. So no, I don't think this was like them listening to America. I think this was them saying, fuck you to America.
To CNN and made some comments about Israel and what they would do if Israel retaliated. Take a listen.
When we say at a maximum, we mean that if Israel commits that same mistake, our response will be regretful for them, immediate and decisive and definitive. If we come across a condition in which the United States of America puts itself beside the Israeli government in order to expand the warfare intentions, it is not within the interest of America to do that.
So very strong words from the foreign minister in Iran. But today, really no comments from Iran.
This somehow is interpreted in Tehran as Israel trying to save face, but not to engage in a significant direct conflict with Iran.
Yeah, and that's the point, because U.S. intelligence and others have been warning for a while now, well, not warning, but indicating that, Iran...
I mean, I think that is true. That is what happened. One could even make that same argument for Iran as well, by the way. One could make the same argument for Iran attacking Israel as well. However, the major difference here is that Iranians know Israel has the capability of attacking Iran. Israel has attacked inside of Iranian soil in the past. Iran, on the other hand, has never directly attacked Israel from Iran. That's why one side's actions were unprecedented, not unprovoked, but definitely unprecedented, whereas the other side's actions are just not really anything. When you think about even the psychological impact, on the entire population, when you look at what Israel's reaction was, what the Israeli population's reaction was to like potentially opening up a new conflict with Iran, they were like, no, we don't want to do that. I feel like that is a byproduct of, one, like a lot of Israelis only responding to force, and two, Israelis and their comfort, like they're Israelis and the comfort that they feel under the Iron Curtain, the Iron Dome, the Iron Wall is easy to pierce through, and it has legitimate psychological impact on the mindset of the population in a way where like the sense of insecurity and the sense of fear that many people in the region have because they are so conditioned to Israel just like doing whatever the fuck they want makes this business as usual for them. Like a dude in Syria or in Iraq knows that their shit's gonna get bombed all day every fucking day. So when a bombing campaign happens, albeit still traumatic, they are way more used to it, to say the least, I guess, to use the weird terminology here. They're way more used to it than an Israeli is, especially when we're talking about like larger weapons than the random bathtub missiles that are lobbed over the Gaza Strip every now and then that are very quickly and swiftly intercepted by the Iron Dome defenses.
And did not want a war with Israel, although it was okay with escalating and just wanted to stay away from a direct confrontation. So in many ways, is there a sense of relief almost in Tehran that they were given this off-ramp by the Israelis?
In the past days, we have been seeing that Iran trying to have a turning point in its engagement.
Piker, why the fuck are you lying? Why did you say not likely? It definitely is likely that I'm going to play video games. What's wrong with you? What do you mean not likely? Yeah, of course I'm going to play video games later.
Israel, for the first time, it tried to directly act against Israeli targets. but there was a chance that this might, provoke a response from the Israeli side. But I think if there is no clear and visible or significant, if this strike was not from the Israeli side, this cannot change that equation from Iranian perspective. So that's important for Iran to stop any, let's say, significant strike against Iranian interests in the region. So by the time that this is in place, I think we might see a way out of this, escalation. But we have to wait again for more updates in the coming hours or days, and it's a bit early to judge that if it's over or not. But to the moment that we are speaking, I think it doesn't seem to be a regional war emerging. But however, even little, the chances are there yet.
In the grand scheme of things, it's often difficult to gauge Iranian public opinion. But is this a conflict which is driven by the hardliners and the elites within the government who want a much tougher stance on Israel? Where's sort of the general public opinion on all of this? It seems they're far more concerned about the economy and US sanctions and wanting a better life.
John, when it comes to external pressure or threats, or even when it's military threat, it is mostly the case that brings people rally around the flag. And that was a kind of, let's say, mostly a national pride for Iran to respond to Israel, the operation which happened a few days ago, whether they like the government policies or not. But when it comes to the security issue, many people would support that because they think that this can work as a deterrence, preventing further Israeli attacks in future. Some thought that if Iran didn't respond sooner or later, maybe in future there could be a war, but they could see this somehow stopping that process. That's why they somehow supported that response. And also that's the matter of the national pride, and whether they are reformists or conservatives, critical or supportive of the government, because that's the issue of the security. They have been mostly supportive of Iran's action against Israel.
Abbas Aslani in Tehran, we appreciate you being with us, sir. Thank you. So live now to Jerusalem, and Yaakov Katz, senior columnist and editor with the Jerusalem Post. It's good to see you.
Hi, John.
What's your assessment, first, of the strike by Israel, and what about Iran's decision, it seems, not to respond?
I think Israel has been trying to balance everything at once, which is not always easy. On the one hand, it felt the need to retaliate to the weekend attack of over 300 drones, cruise missiles, ballistic missiles. And it wanted to hit something that would get a message across to the Iranians that attacks of that kind will not be tolerated, but not to lead to a wider escalation. The fact that the Iranians are staying also a bit quiet about what was attacked and they're trying to downplay the significance is also their attempt to try to contain it. So I think everyone has an interest right now. It seems so far, and in the Middle East, we know, John, that things can change very quickly. But so far,
if Israel's interest was to contain it, then why didn't they just contain it? The embassy bombing was a direct escalation. It was unacceptable. It was a violation of, he covered the self-immolation dude quickly. No, I didn't cover it quickly. I covered it with more information than you will ever get from mainstream media. I covered it for an hour and 30 minutes. Suck my... The fuck do you want, dude? Anyway.
Far, it seems that both sides want to call it a day, say we got in our blows and now we can move on.
Yeah, there was some reporting that Israel was ready to strike Iran on Monday, but it was sort of postponed or called off because of operational issues. That's all we know. I'm just wondering if this limited strike was sort of plan B, if you like.
Well, Israel, we know in the Security Cabinet, there have been some debates over the past 5-6 days of exactly what the appropriate response should be. And I can tell you that within Israel, there were people who looked at that attack this past Sunday morning as the justification, essentially, for Israel to finally go after Iran's nuclear industrial complex, that threat that we've been hearing about for so long, as well as other key facilities in Iran. And there were others who didn't want to see a response at all. Add to that the pressure that this government was under from President Joe Biden, from the UK, from the European officials, to basically what they were calling take it a win of what the interception of that Iranian assault was. Even though it was just a defense, it was no win. It was just a successful interception. But Israel felt that it did need to do something. And I think that this is probably, like you said, the compromise. It is a way for Israel to get a shot across the bow at Iran and show them that something has been done. Don't learn a bad lesson from what you did on Sunday. But also, we in Israel don't want this to go any farther right now.
I mean, there's two views of what happened on Sunday morning. Either there was an overwhelming failure by the Iranians, because everything got shot down essentially, from ICBMs to the drones, and Israel stood firm. Or it was a message by Iran that was limited in scope because they say they did not target population centers. I mean, the common sense answer is it was the former, not the latter. And that actually sort of played into this decision by Israel for a limited strike. How do you see it?
Yeah, I mean, just because you have a good defense doesn't mean that that is necessarily a victory, right? Israel was able to intercept all of those missiles and drones, that pretty much 99% that were making its way, together with that regional collective partnership that involved the Americans, the British, the French, the Jordanians, the Saudis, and possibly others. That's a great success, but it's not a victory. And I think that the way to really look at this is just, I actually tend to look at it, John, as we should view every single one of these missiles and drones as if they actually landed, damaged, and even killed people. Because just because something was...
What? Well, no one died in the Iranian attack. I like to think that they did. Why? So that I can imagine retaliating in kind and actually killing people, even though nobody died in the Iranian retaliation. What a strange thing to say. It is strange, and yet I feel like it says a lot about the collective psyche.
Was shot at you and didn't hurt you doesn't mean it wasn't shot. It was, and there's an intention by Iran to, as we know, because they clearly stated, they want to wipe Israel off the map. They've been supporting proxies throughout this region. Hezbollah, which has fired since October 7th, almost 5,000.
That's so funny. Yeah, dude, they wanted to wipe Israel off the map, and they failed to do so. Why? Because they gave 72 hours in advance warning. It's so funny. It's like, no, you don't understand. Iran actually wanted to wipe Israel off the map. They just couldn't because we're so powerful. But our enemy is both weak and strong at the same time. Why do they give warning? Because it was a calculated retaliation.
And missiles into Israel. Hamas, of course, in Gaza. The Houthis in Yemen. Israel is the most attacked country today in the world, and we can't contain this. Those days of where we just pretend just because it was intercepted that it didn't really happen, well, it did happen, and it needs to be met with force, I think.
On the other side of the equation, though, the Iranians would be looking at that weekend attack as a complete and dismal, colossal failure. And then comes this attack this counterstrike by Israel. Clearly, there has to be a calculation there that they don't want to get into a wider conflict with Israel right now because the strike on the weekend was a failure.
On the one hand, it was a failure because most of it was just intercepted. On the other hand, they could...
Now they're just like jerking each other off. What the fuck's going on, dude?
Could say we struck Israel's Air Force base. We know that some of those missiles landed at this base where the F-35s, Israel's most advanced fifth-generation fighter jets, are based, and they can claim that they actually penetrated and were able to strike inside that base. And even though most of it was intercepted, it did get Israeli air sirens going. It got Israelis into a week of mass hysteria, John. We Israelis were in fear of their lives, I would say, in a way that we haven't been in a long time. We've unfortunately, and this is not a good thing, but we've gotten used to rockets from Gaza. We've gotten used to rockets from Lebanon. Getting fired at from Iran after all these years of hearing of how strong and powerful and dangerous they are did not make Israelis feel safe, and there still is a lot of concern of what comes next. So I think
it's pretty funny that they're whipping themselves up into a frenzy by being like, sure, this was a very successful defense against the retaliation by Iran, but what if it wasn't? The only reason why you do that is if you're just genuinely trying to fucking get people upset and mad and scared and angry, so that like there's at least some level of political pressure from the public to do more against Iran. You are insane. An insane position, dude. It is actually an insane position. Instead of taking advantage of the moment and, saying cooler heads will prevail, they're like, no, you don't understand. This shit was fucked up, actually. It was real fucked up. We gotta, what if everybody died?
I don't think that necessarily they view this as a failure. Not yet.
Yaakov Katz, as always, good to see you.
Anyway, I feel like that, I think honestly, that inconsistency, that chaos, I think that, dude, please stop sending me the fucking Trump fart. Trump farted in the courtroom shit, please. I don't care. Please stop linking me the fact that Trump farts in the courtroom.